Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're talking AHPRA registration, and specifically for those of you coming from African countries.
Exactly.
You know you've got the skills and the passion to work in Australian healthcare,
You do.
but this AHPRA thing can be a real roadblock.
It's true.
And we're here to make it so much easier for you.
Absolutely.
So let's get started.
I'm excited.
First up, could you just give us an overview of what AHPRA actually is?
Sure. It's the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency.
Okay, so they're the ones who decide if you can practice healthcare in Australia.
Yeah, and they're all about protecting the public.
Makes sense.
They want to make absolutely sure that anyone practicing healthcare in Australia meets their high standards.
So basically, they're the guardians of Australian patients.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I read somewhere that they got over 100,000 applications in 2022.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Wow, so that's a lot of people wanting to work in Australian healthcare. But how do they even compare qualifications from so many different countries?
Well, they have a really thorough process for that.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They focus on three main areas.
Okay, what are those?
Your academic qualifications, so your degree,
Okay,
then your English language skills.
right. That's crucial for clear communication in healthcare.
Absolutely. And lastly, your criminal history.
Yeah, we've got to make sure patients are safe.
Definitely.
So let's start with the academic qualifications.
Okay.
What's the basic requirement for someone wanting to work in healthcare in Australia?
It's pretty straightforward. You need a relevant degree from an institution they recognize.
Okay, so like a Bachelor of Nursing or a Doctor of Medicine.
Exactly.
But what if your degree is from an African university?
AHPRA needs to make sure it meets Australian standards.
So they do some kind of assessment?
Yeah, they have a process for comparing overseas qualifications.
And are there any specific requirements for people from African countries?
It depends on the country. For example, people from Nigeria or South Africa might need to provide extra documents.
Okay, so always double check on the AHPRA website.
Always. Better be safe than sorry.
Okay, so you've got your degree sorted out.
Yep.
Next hurdle is English skills.
Right.
How do they test your English?
The most common tests are IELTS, OIT, and PT.
Okay, so those are the big ones.
Yeah.
And what kind of scores are we talking about here?
Most healthcare professions require at least a 7.0 overall in IELTS.
A 7.0. Wow, that's pretty high.
It is, but clear communication is so important in healthcare.
Right. Even a small misunderstanding could be a big problem.
Exactly. You need to be able to understand and be understood perfectly.
So a 7 overall, and what about the individual bands?
For most professions, you can't have any band lower than a 7 either.
Okay, so those are the magic numbers.
Yeah, 7.0 overall and no band less than 7.
All right, so your degree is recognized and your English is excellent.
What's next?
The criminal history check.
Right.
This seems pretty intense.
It is, but it's all about public safety and trust.
So what exactly do you need to provide?
You need to provide a criminal history check from your home country
Okay.
and from any other country you've lived in for 10 years or more.
Wow. So even if you just spent a year studying abroad, you'd need a check from that country.
Exactly. They're very thorough.
So they're not messing around.
Not at all. It's about making sure patients feel safe and confident in the Australian healthcare system.
Which makes sense. I mean, would you want to be treated by someone with a questionable past?
Probably not.
No, neither would I. So it's all good.
It's all part of the process.
So we've got our qualifications checked, English skills confirmed, and criminal history all clear.
Looking good.
What's next?
Well, next we have to make sure you have all the necessary documents.
Okay, so like your passport and degree certificate and stuff.
Exactly. Those are the essentials for your AHPRA application.
Okay, so tell me more about these documents and what we need to do with them.
It's like packing for a big trip.
Okay.
You don't want to leave anything behind.
Right, so what are the must-haves for our AHPRA application?
Your passport, of course.
Okay, to prove who you are.
Exactly. Then your academic transcripts and certificates.
So that's all your degrees and qualifications.
Yep. And don't forget proof of your amazing English skills.
Right, we talked about those tests.
Exactly. And you'll also need documents showing your clinical training or supervised practice.
Okay, so like proof that you've actually worked in healthcare.
Yeah, that's important. And of course, those criminal history checks we discussed.
Wow, it's quite a list.
It is, but it's all important stuff.
So gathering all these documents sounds like a bit of a challenge.
It can be. Yeah, especially if you've been out of school for a while.
Yeah, you're probably digging through old boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember one time I thought I'd lost a crucial certificate.
Oh, no!
Yeah, I was panicking, but it turned out to be tucked away in an old textbook.
Oh, that's a relief.
It was. So yeah, my advice is start early and be organized.
Okay, good advice. So let's say we've got all our documents in order.
Excellent.
What's next?
Now it's time to tackle the online application itself.
Okay, so where do we go for that?
You'll need to create an account on the AHPRA portal.
Okay, and I'm guessing that's where we upload all those documents we just gathered.
You got it.
Any tips for filling out the application?
Just be super careful and accurate.
Like triple check everything.
Exactly. A small mistake could cause big delays.
Right, so we don't want to give them any excuse to hold things up.
Nope. So take your time and make sure everything is perfect.
Okay, application submitted, all details checked and double checked.
Nice work.
Oh, what?
Now comes the fun part,
Oh, what's that?
paying the application fee.
Okay, yeah, there's always a fee.
Always. And this one isn't exactly small.
How much are we talking?
It varies depending on the profession you're registering for.
Okay.
But it's usually somewhere between 500 and 800 Australian dollars.
Wow, that's not cheap.
It's an investment in your future career?
True, but still, it's something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And another important thing to remember,
What's that?
that fee is non-refundable.
Oh, so no backing out now.
Nope. Once you hit submit, you're committed.
Okay, so fees paid, application submitted. What happens next?
Now the waiting game begins.
Oh boy, the waiting game.
Yep. Your application goes into the assessment phase.
And how long does that usually take?
It can be anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months.
Okay, so that's quite a range.
It is a few things can affect the time frame.
Like what?
If your application is missing information, it could take longer.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or if AHPRA is dealing with a backlog.
So it's really unpredictable.
To some extent, yeah.
So all we can do is be patient.
Exactly.
Okay, so after the assessment, what happens?
Well, you might get what's called an additional information request.
What's that?
It basically means AHPRA needs more information from you.
Oh, okay. So they might have some questions.
Yeah. Or they might need you to provide some extra documents.
So it's like a back and forth.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so what should we do if we get one of those requests?
Respond as quickly as possible.
Don't leave them hanging.
Exactly. The quicker you respond, the smoother the process will be.
So stay on top of your emails. Okay, so we've submitted our application, paid our fees, and hopefully responded to any information requests.
You're getting close.
Now it's a decision time, right?
You get it. This is the moment of truth.
So they just tell you yes or no.
Pretty much, yeah. You'll get an email with their decision.
So fingers crossed it's a yes.
Fingers crossed, but it's important to be prepared for a no as well.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's a possibility.
It is, but if it happens, don't despair.
Okay, because it's not the end of the world, right?
Exactly. AHPRA will give you
Huh.
feedback explaining why your application was rejected.
Oh, that's helpful.
It can help you understand what you need to do differently next time.
So you can learn from it and improve your application.
Exactly. The learning experience.
Okay, so we've talked about the application fee, but there are other costs involved, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like what?
Well, those English language tests can cost a few $100s each.
Right.
And then there are things like getting your documents notarized or translated.
Oh, yeah, those can add up.
They can. And don't forget about the criminal history checks themselves. Those usually have a fee too.
So there are quite a few hidden costs.
Yeah, it's important to budget for all of these expenses.
So it's not just about the big application fee.
Nope, it's about the whole package.
Okay, so we need to be financially prepared for this journey.
Definitely, it's an investment.
And speaking of the journey, this whole process can be quite stressful.
You're not wrong.
So any advice for people who are feeling overwhelmed?
Well, first of all, it's totally normal to feel overwhelmed.
Okay, so we're not alone.
Not at all. It's a big process with a lot at stake.
True.
So don't be afraid to reach out for support.
Okay, so like talk to friends and family.
Exactly. They could be a great source of support.
And what about professional support, like career counselors?
Yeah, they can be really helpful too. They can offer guidance and advice.
So there are resources out there to help us through this.
Absolutely. You don't have to do this alone.
That's good to know. So we've covered a lot of practical information, but we also need to talk about the emotional side of things.
For sure.
Like, how do we stay positive and motivated throughout this whole process?
Well, it's important to celebrate the small wins,
Like what?
like getting all your documents together or acing that English test.
Okay, yeah, those are good milestones.
They are, and they help you stay on track.
And what about when things don't go so well?
Well, setbacks are inevitable,
Sure.
but try not to let them get you down.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know, but it's important to keep things in perspective.
Okay.
Remember why you're doing this.
Right. Because we have a dream.
Exactly. And that dream is worth fighting for.
So don't give up.
Never give up.
Okay. I like that attitude.
It's the only way to succeed.
So we've talked about the practicalities, the finances, and the emotional side of the AHPRA process.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, and I'm feeling pretty informed.
Me too.
But I know there's still more to
Oh,
come
yeah.
because we haven't even talked about what it's like to actually live and work in Australia.
Right. That's a whole other topic.
It is, and one that we'll be diving into in our next section.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. But before we move on, any last words of wisdom for our listeners who are just starting out on this AHPRA journey?
Sure, believe in yourself and your dream.
Okay.
You've got this far, and you have what it takes to succeed.
So keep going.
Keep going, stay informed, seek support, and never give up.
Great advice. So that's it for this part of our AHPRA deep dive.
But there's more to come.
Stay tuned for our next section where we'll be talking about finding your community in Australia.
It's going to be good.
I can't wait. All right, so we're back and ready to wrap up this AHPRA deep dive. We've talked about the requirements, the costs, even the emotional roller coaster of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
But there's one more thing we need to cover.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's all about finding your people in Australia.
Absolutely.
Your tribe, your community.
Yeah, those people who get it, who've been through the same thing.
Exactly. So let's talk about how to find those connections, especially for our listeners who are moving to Australia from Africa.
It can make a world of difference.
It really can. So where should people start?
Well, there's some great organizations, specifically for international healthcare professionals.
Like what?
The Australian Medical Association, or AMA,
Okay, I've heard of them.
and the Nursing and Midwifery Federation.
Okay.
They both have branches or groups that are dedicated to supporting international members.
So it's like a built-in network
Exactly. You can connect with people who understand what you're going through.
and get advice and support.
Exactly. And then there's social media.
Oh, yeah, Facebook groups and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can find groups specifically for African healthcare professionals in Australia.
That's awesome.
It is, you can ask questions, share experiences, and even find mentors.
So it's like a virtual support group?
Yeah, kind of.
It's amazing how technology can connect people like that.
It really is. You can
Mhm.
make a big move feel a lot less daunting.
Definitely. So joining professional organizations and online groups are great ways to find your community.
Yep.
And once you're settled in, you can pay it forward by helping others who are new to Australia.
Exactly. It's all about supporting each other.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap up, I just remembered something we haven't discussed.
What's that?
Bridging courses.
Ah, yes. Those are important.
Could you tell us a bit more about them?
Sure, bridging courses are designed to fill any gaps between your overseas qualifications and Australian standards.
Okay, so it's like an extra step to make sure you're fully qualified.
Exactly. It might involve taking some additional classes or training.
And is this something that everyone needs to do?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It depends on your specific qualifications and the profession you're registering for.
So it's best to check with AHPRA.
Always.
Okay, so bridging courses might be something to consider.
Yep. It's all about making sure you're prepared to practice safely and effectively in Australia.
Makes sense. Okay, well, I think we've covered just about everything.
I think so too.
We've talked about the requirements, the process, the costs, the emotional side of things, and finding your community.
We've really gone deep.
We have, and I hope our listeners are feeling informed and empowered.
Me too.
So to everyone out there who's dreaming of a healthcare career in Australia, we say go for it.
Yes, absolutely.
The journey might be challenging, but it's definitely worth it.
You'll gain invaluable experience and make a real difference in people's lives.
And who knows, you might even end up calling Australia home.
It happens.
It does. So thank you for joining us on this AHPRA deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we wish you all the best on your journey.
Good luck, everyone.
We'll see you next time.